learning about um, the people of Sedom, and the reason we're learning about them is because they are mentioned as people who are not going to be part of the world to come. Let me bring up the text. Hold on. Okay. So we're learning on in Sanhedrin. We're on page 109.2, towards the middle. So we're talking about different behaviors of the people of Sedom. So it says, Havi lehu pur yasa dahavu magni Allah orchin. They had, let's make sure that the Zoom is working properly. Yeah, so they had a bed on which they would lay their guests. I'm going to see in a second that's not everyone holds this to be literally. Kimarich gozi lay, if the guest was too long for the bed, larger than the bed, so they would saw off his feet or her feet. Ki guts, if they were shorter, maschinle, they would stretch the person. So they had a bed that everyone had to fit whatever the bed was, 5.5 feet, 6 feet. So whatever it was, the person had to fit the bed at length. So if the person was too long, they would cut off the person's legs, which is obviously insane. And if the person was too short, they would stretch the person, which is equally insane. Eliezer Eved Avram Ikle Lahasim. Eliezer, again, the servant of Avram Avinu, our father Avram, came to Sedom, like we've read last week. Amrle, they said, Kum Ginei Apuria, sit, lie down in the bed. I guess they didn't tell people what the bed was for. They just said, why don't you lie down in the bed? Amr he said to them, suspicious, evidently, Nidra Nidari, I made a vow. Min Yoima de Misas Ima, from when my mother passed away, that loy ganena apuria, I do not lie on a bed. So he says basically he avoid again. It was kind of these weird ideas of how the person how they actualized the decrees. So they could have grabbed him and forced him on the bed, but instead they said that he has to. He said, he doesn't want to lie in the bed. I guess only if he lied on the bed, so then you would get, I guess, maybe strapped down, and they would saw off your legs or stretch you. So Rashi says, we're going to learn one of the commentaries in a second how it's not exactly literal. Ki arach yeitzule, kisha arach yoise min amit. If the person was too long for the bed, mikatzer noise besakin, they would use a knife or a saw, and gaitzi lashin guts kain shemait vista garsi gaidile. So Rashi says this means to saw down the feet, saw off the feet, obviously not the head, so the person would fit in the bed. They would stretch the person until they kind of stretched out their limbs until they fit the bed. Again, this is obviously strange behavior, and again, not just strange behavior, but talking about evil behavior. Um, uh, so this was evil behavior on behalf of, hey Danny, on behalf of the people of Sedom, who they had this decision that you had to fit in size, and if you didn't fit that size, so then they would either saw you down or stretch your. Hey, Bruce, welcome. We're learning now. We're continuing the story of the people of Sedom. We're on page 109.2. The people of Sedom that were very evil. We learn about them in Torah. And so it says basically it's kind of a midrashic part of the Talmud that talks about different stories of Eliezer, the servant of Avram, who would come to who made his way to Sedom a few times, evidently. So in one of these events, they asked him to lie down in a bed, that if this bed, they would measure people, the guests of the city. If a person was too long, they would saw his feet off or her feet off. And if the person was too short, they would stretch the person. Everyone had to fit the bed. They wanted everyone to be a certain size, right? It reminds you of German Nazis. They wanted people to look a certain way. So everyone had to be a certain exact size, and either you fit the bed, but you had to lie in the bed in order to get this, so to say, correction or service. And Eliezer said he wouldn't lie in the bed because he doesn't lie in bed since his mother passed away. So that's a literal translation. Rashi translates it literally. The Darkei Yosef says that it wasn't literally as far as it was equally corrupt. But what it was talking about was that they had a system in Sedom that basically a person who they wanted the people they would tax the people. And they said that one of the rules they said was everyone had to fit a certain bed, meaning everyone had to fit a certain lifestyle that they decided. If you had too much money, so they felt, or if you that if anything extra beyond what they felt you could live on or should live on, they would ask you to give that money to the state or to the city, to the council. So basically was a manipulation. If a person was poor, means that person didn't fit the bed. They felt that you should be you should be an earner of X amount of money. So they would tax you, they would stretch you as if you had that money. So you would have to pay the amount that they assumed or would have liked you to have earned to pay higher taxes. So more that you're paying on an assumed income that you weren't making. So they would stretch you as if your wallet was larger than it was and have you pay that amount of money because they said you only need $100,000 to live. We say you make 200,000, you have to give 100,000 to the state. On the same time, a rich person, they manipulated the opposite. They would shrink that person. Where a person was really earning, let's say, $1 million, they would say, no, they would cut off his feet. They would say he's only earning 200,000 and he only has to pay 100,000 tax instead of, let's say, $800,000 tax. So basically it was again, when you look at it in this way, in the Dark Yosef's way, it's simple idea of taxing the poor and giving benefits to the rich, which is sometimes people say that's happening till today. Like I said, Sedom gets a bad rep because of the stories that we tell about them. We expose them. We expose Sedom for what it is. But if you look deeper into what Sedom was doing, it's not necessarily so different what's happening today. And so again, they were manipulating people's income to tax either the poor higher than they should be taxed or to give benefits to the rich. And again, everything was systematic. They had rules. It wasn't the Wild West, which it was lawless. There was rules, and the rules were extremely corrupt. Okay, they had another rule. Again, these were, if you look at it, you wonder they struggled with an identity, meaning to say, if the next story you have over here, ki misramai le anya, if a poor person came to town. So if they were just straight up evil, they would ignore the person.
Because there were other people up there.
So they wanted to present themselves as kind people and giving people and just people. So if a poor person came, kol chad v'chad dinara, kol chad v'chad dinara. Everyone would give that person a dinar. Dinar is amount of money. So everyone would give him. A poor person comes to town, we're giving people. But what would they do? Uchsiv shmei alei, they would write their name on the money, on the coin. But there was an unwritten rule that no store would sell this person anything. So everyone would give him money, but he wouldn't be able to buy, or she wouldn't be able to buy anything because no store would accept the money. Then that person would die of starvation. When the person would die, each person would take the money that they gave him. So they projected themselves as nice, caring people. Right? Everything was with rules. Everything had a reason. Like we learned last week, every one of the rules had reasons, but they were deeply corrupt and deeply evil. Like the Mishnah says, the Mishnah in Perek Yava says, a person who says what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. So one opinion is that's a midah beinoni, that's an average person. What you have is yours, what I have is mine. There's another opinion in the Mishnah that says that's the midah of Sedom. That's how the people of Sedom projected themselves, right? Everything's honest. What's mine is mine, yours is yours. What kind of society is that? And this is one of the only times in history where God actually comes in and intervenes and actually destroys the city. Sedom was so corrupt and its manipulation of the truth and what is considered good and what's considered evil. That God actually, without any, there was no opportunity for tshuva. The only other time again that the God was about to do that was the city of Nineveh, but the city of Nineveh did tshuva. But in Sedom there was no opportunity for tshuva. Avram Avinu fought to save the cities by finding a few righteous people, but there were none. God said there's no righteous people in the cities of Sedom. So therefore, we have, so again, everything they did was corrupt. So here they give money to the poor person, but they do it in such a way that he can't do anything with the money, and then they take their money back. So on paper, they look like nice people or giving people, but at the end, they starve the person to death. So Rashi says, Ksiv Shmei Alei, they would write their name on the money. Each person could identify their monies that they donated or gave. Dinar Shalai, their money. And they would take it back when the person died of starvation. They wouldn't sell him any bread, any food. Hisnu b'neim, they had a condition between themselves. They would never give this, no one would sell this person. So this person was poor, he'd come into town, everyone would give him a donation, but no one would sell him anything. So what's the money worth? So the person should die of starvation. When the person died, they would take their money. Again, so this is the twisted of the people of Sedom. They had these rules, and at the end, God called foul on it. He wasn't subscribing to their official constitution of survival, whether it was taxing people in an inappropriate way, taxing the poor, giving benefits to the rich, whether it was in their rules of taking the ferries, like we learned last week, or hitting someone, you had to pay him because you bled. Bleeding was a way of healing. So there was Eliezer, the servant of Avram, actually was one of the persons that the Gemara implies that called foul himself on it. He'd come in there and he manipulated their rules against them. And here's the next story. It says, they had an agreement in the city that said like this: if someone invited someone else to a wedding or to an event and a wedding, right? So the agreement was l'shalach lima, they would remove the cloak of the inviter. So they didn't want any guests. Again, we learned last week that one of the corruption of the people of Sedom was that God blessed them, that they had both money and food. And they felt that because they had money, gold and food, they didn't need anyone. If you only have money, and you don't have food, so you have to buy food, so you have to interact with others. If you have food and you don't have money, so you have to sell food so you can get money. But they had both gold and food, so they figured, we don't want anyone. No one should come to our city. We want to be alone. We don't want to help anyone else. We don't want to be a giving society, or a society that has to do with another. Till today, you have people that say, anti-globalization. People say, why are we sending out benefits? Why is a country like the United States, that's a giving country? People are fighting against helping other poor countries or countries in need. We need to keep the money here. That was the thinking of Sedom. So here they had another rule that if a person invited someone to a wedding, the inviter would lose his cloak. Have a hayilula. There was a wedding, and Ikla Eliezer lahasem. Eliezer, the servant of Avram, showed up at this wedding. Doesn't say why. Maybe it was a wedding of one of the daughters of Lot. And when he arrived, they did not give him bread. Again, because he's a guest, and they were anti-guests. Misad, when he came to the Suda, to the meal of the wedding, he said at the end of the table, towards the end of the wedding hall. So the person next to him sees Eliezer, and they knew everyone who was a local, and said, what's this guy doing here? Guests are not invited to our weddings. Who invited you here? Because the rule was whoever invited him would lose his cloak, or her cloak. He said to the person who asked him, who was sitting next to me, he looked him square in the eye and he said, you lent me the money. You invited me. The person was taken aback. Dilma. So the person got all overwhelmed. Eliezer in a loud voice pronounced, "You're the one who invited me." Dilma shami bi da'ana azmine. Maybe people are going to hear that he's saying that I was the inviter. And he says, perhaps they will hear that I invited him, and they will remove the garment of that man, meaning about himself. So he was scared that he would get punished. Shaku glimahu di Yosef gabe urahat levara. So the one who was sat next to him took his cloak and ran outside, got scared. V'chein avid lekula, and so the next person sitting next to him afterwards said, "Who invited you?" He said, "You invited me." So he kept on doing it over and over again. Adinafikula, everyone left the wedding. Everyone was scared. He ate the whole meal. Again, the story can't be 100% taken literally, but we see over here how Eliezer, like in the case of the judge last week, when someone threw a stone at Eliezer, and the judge says, "Well, you have to pay him because when someone throws a stone at you, you're bleeding, and bleeding helps a person, to flush out bad viruses or unhealthy blood." So he threw a stone at the judge, right? So he was calling foul at this behavior. So Rashi says, "Hachi aisibadei kol man dezamin achnasi lebehilula." The agreement was whoever would invite someone to a wedding, l'shalche liglima yafshitu as big day oisa ish es minoi. To shame that person, they would undress him. So Asa Eliezer Eved Avram, Eliezer the servant of Avram comes. V'Yosef Aseifa Dekuli ate. He sat at the end of the meal. I'm reading Rashi. Halach v'Yosef Aseifa Kulam. He sat at the end of the wedding. Amalei man izamnelach. So if someone said, "Who lahacha? Who invited you here?" So Amalei Eliezer would say, "The leman de Yosef Gabe, the person who's sitting next to him. Atizman tilacha. You invited me." So the person got nervous. Shakal glima de Yosef Gabe v'rat levara. The person sat next to him who asked him, "Who invited you?" And Eliezer pronounced loudly, "You invited me," grabbed his cloak and ran away. So then he sat next to the next person. And same thing, and so he said to each person, till everyone left the wedding, and he ate the whole meal. Meaning to say, basically, seeming from the story, and this we're going to go to the last story now, was Eliezer came to town, so they gave him money, I guess, as a poor person. They wouldn't sell him any food. So he went to a wedding. Because, you go to a wedding to eat, he figured he would be a wedding crasher and eat a free meal. He comes to the wedding, they said, "Who invited you?" Right? No one invites guests in Sedom. So he said, "You invited me." And everyone, kept on going till everyone left, and then he had what to eat plenty. Okay, this is the story this is the final story. That basically was what they say, the needle that broke the camel's back. This story was what Hashem came down and decided to destroy Sedom. It says, and this is brought down in Rashi and Chumash, Havya hi revisa. There was a young woman who would take out bread. She would take out bread for the poor people in a pitcher. So she would go out, officially collecting, filling up her barrels of water as a water carrier. It wasn't uncommon for women to carry water those days, like we know the story of Rivka and Rachel. So she would go out to carry water. So she would hide food in her bucket. Igla milsa, and she would feed the poor. Igla milsa, and it became the matter was revealed that she was giving, and again, giving and helping the poor was a crime in Sedom. What was her punishment? Again, Rashi quotes this story in Chumash: "Is shafyua duvsha." So they smeared her with honey, ve'oikmuha al igar shura, and they positioned her on the wall of the city. Asa zubure vachlua, she was bitten. So even Rashi says she was eaten alive by bees because of the honey, and she died. She was murdered by the people of Sedom for being kind. And this is what the verse says. Vayomer Hashem, God said, Zaka Sedom v'Amorah ki rabba, that because of the cry of Sedom and Gomorrah that is great, this cry of their behavior, and others say the cry that the girl cried in her pain, is what reached God's ears, and he said, Sedom is not a society. This is not a society that I want to allow it to be in my world, and God destroyed Sedom. It was the matter of the young woman that caused Hashem to the final verdict to destroy the city of Sedom. Again, we have to remember that obviously there's been times where there's been punishment and there's been natural disasters, but in a miraculous way, that God came in and literally took a city of Sedom, which was lush till today. It's in the Jordan Valley, or south of the Jordan Valley, what's known as the area of the Dead Sea. That God literally took a society and destroyed it in a miraculous way with fire and brimstone, because their behavior, and officially, it wasn't just that they were bad; they were systematically bad. Their constitution was corrupt to such an extent that God said this can't continue, and He destroyed the city of stone. Revisa is a naira, inside her bucket. She would take out food. When she went to go get water, she would take out food. She would hide food in her bucket, in her empty bucket, and feed the poor. Shafu sachu, they smeared her. Igra shura gaga chayme, they put on the roof of the city, of the wall. Kiraba al iske riba. What means kiraba? So it says over here that on the story of this young woman is why Hashem destroyed it. That's what Rashi says. The Mashra quotes that the emphasis is on the za'aka, on the cry. That, and this Rashi also quotes, I think, in Chumash, that it's the cry of the young girl. Some people say haktzakasa. We've learned Alter Rebbe's Maimer on this, about the idea of Eini Hashem Lekecha, how God is watching, and He says Erdena ve'era. Let's go down and see haktzakasa, about this cry of the young girl. Is the cry of the young girl, and like the Alter Rebbe explains in Chassidus, that God wanted to see if there's any voice that could justify, any of the angels that bring up the voices of what's happening, could you justify the behavior of the people of Sedom? And there was no justification. There was no midas chesed. There was no even the attribute of kindness that should promote forgiveness. There was no forgiving of the people of Sedom, and therefore the city of Sedom was destroyed. Rabbi Steinsaltz figure, and this finishes the story of Sedom. Rabbi Steinsaltz adds, in the Medrash, the young woman is identified as one of the daughters of Lot. So the idea is why, what kind of girl, what kind of home did a girl who has these attribute of kindness? So she's from the daughters of Lot, because Lot grew up in the house of Avram, and Avram was a giving person. We see that Lot went to a city that was totally opposite of Avram. Avram, who was overly giving, he was so giving, he sat outside, he opened up institutions of giving, he opened up a pardes, he opened up a eshel for people to come and find food in the desert. The people of Sedom were the opposite. But one of the daughters of Lot, who took a lesson from her cousin, uncle, so she was the one that fed the poor, and was killed by honey. The sages explain the verse, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of her, which has come to me, was written with regard to the cry of this young woman. Okay. The Gemara continues. So we're going to continue from the Mishnah that says, again, this is basically the opinion that the people of Sedom have no portion in the world to come, and now we understand a little bit more why. Again, it's the lesson of it is there's evil, and then there's systematic evil and corrupt evil, right? The laws of that were issued in 1940s against the Jewish people wasn't just that people were running the streets of Germany and Austria and Poland killing Jews. There was a system. There was laws, the Nuremberg laws that were created to find and kill and murder all the Jewish people. So too people of Sedom were systematically corrupt, and that Hashem was not going to accept. The spies do not have a portion in the world to come. Shenemer, as the Torah says, the people died. The people who spoke evil about Eretz Yisrael, which were the spies, they died in a plague. So seemingly the verse says they died in a plague. But had it been to say that they died in a plague, it should have said Vayemusu b'magefa. The fact that it says magefa, the plague, at the end of the verse indicates Vayemusu, they died ba'il mazeh, in this world. B'magefa is coming to add to the death that it was effective also l'olam haba, for the world to come. They do not have a portion in the world to come. This is a short piece. And we move from here to Korach. So Mr. Reb Steinsaltz says, on what basis is the term by plague interpreted as a reference to the world to come? Apparently, the explanation is not based on the term by plague, but on the entire phrase, by plague before the Lord. This indicates that they were stricken from before God, and they no longer exist before Him. Therefore, they no longer exist even in the world to come. Okay. Adas Korach. Now we're going to the next story that happens in the desert, which is the camp or the uprising, the rebellion of Korach. Korach is, of course, the Levite we're going to learn about Korach. He was a special person. He was a unique person, a very wealthy person, but he was also a jealous person, and he wanted some position of power, and he felt he was overlooked too many times, and he started a rebellion, again, after the story of the spies, that he started this rebellion That's really the first time the tribe of Levi, kind of rebelled against God and Moshe. And obviously with the tribes of Reuven and others, Dasan and Aviron, and they were all, the ground opened up and ate up, swallowed up the camp of Korach, and the 250 that sacrificed were consumed by the fire. So now what happens to the assembly of Korach? So the Mishnah says, Adas Korach Elam Chelek Leilam Haba. The assembly of Korach do not have a portion in the world to come. Shenemer, as the Torah says, Vatachas Aleim Ars, they were swallowed up, and the earth covered them, which is Ba'olam Hazeh, meaning this world they died. Vayoivdu Mitoicha Kol, and they were perished from among the assembly, which is in addition, La'olam Haba, they have no portion in the world to come. This is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva takes the harsh opinion that they both were killed and they have no portion in the world to come. However, Rabbi Eliezer says, Aleim Omar Kasif, that he disagrees with Rabbi Akiva, and he says, no, this is the verse is referring to the people of Korach. Hashem Meimis Machaya, God kills and makes alive. Morid She'ol, he lowers those to the grave, which is indicating the people of Korach. Vaya'al, and they get elevated, meaning to say that after they were punished with being swallowed up, they have elevation, which means that's a kind of tshuva, and they have a portion in the world to come. So Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with Rabbi Akiva. Now again, you have to remember something. We're going to learn that when the fact that they say to Moshe that kol what's the exact wording? Kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim, that everyone is holy. They were holy people. And we're going to learn that based on this holiness, Oim ben Peles was saved, because they weren't people that had no connection to godliness. They're actually very spiritual people, but their spirituality was twisted, where they wouldn't accept Moshe as the leader, and they even rebelled against Hashem in their holiness. Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis have taught. Adas Korach, the congregation of Korach, Elam Chelek Leilam Haba, like Rabbi Akiva says, they do not have a portion in the world to come. And he quotes again the verse, "V'tchas aleim ars," the earth covered them, ba'olam hazeh, which indicates they were died in this world. V'yoivdu mitecha kol, they were lost amongst the congregation, which indicates Rabbi Olam haba, the world to come. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, again the Brisa quotes Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, this is a different opinion than Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Beseira, says, "Harihen ka'aveda hamisbakeshes," they are lost. They're like a lost item that is sought. Meaning to say that after they're lost, they're sought to be brought back. Like it says in Tehillim, Ta'isi kiseh oived, that they say about the people of Korach, that I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Bakish avdecha, seek out your servant. Ki mitzvaysecha leicha shachach, they haven't forgotten your mitzvahs. Meaning they asked to do tshuva. They said, we haven't forgotten your mitzvahs. Means we came from a holy place. Like Rashi is going to quote the quote that he said, Kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. So they did tshuva, they realized they were wrong. We know the famous medrash that says that when they were swallowed up in the ground, what were they saying? I think Rashi quotes this, Moshe emes v'teirase emes. Moshe is true. So they realized that Moshe was true. They did tshuva. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer v'yavdu harihen ka'aveda misbakeshes u'bayin la'olam haba. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira agrees with Rabbi Eliezer. He quotes a different verse, however, that he says that unlike Rabbi Akiva, they do have a portion of the world to come. Shekach Omer David, so said King David. Al bnei Korach, and the sons of Korach, ta'isi keseh oived, I went astray like a lost sheep. Bakish avdecha, seek out your servant. Heim to'u keseh oived, like a lost sheep. V'ata b'rachmecha rabim, God, with your great compassion. Bakish avdecha v'tivayim leilam haba. David asked on behalf of the congregation of Korach that God should forgive them. Mitzvasecha le'shachachti, we haven't forgotten your mitzvahs. Shekayim kol mitzvasecha, they did all the mitzvahs. They weren't sinners outside of the story. Like it says, Ki kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. Everyone is holy. So they also were holy. Okay, so I don't know if there's any mefarshim on this. Okay, the verse teaches us, we're going to continue in the story of Korach. The Korach goes for a while here. The story of Korach is, it says, Vayikach Korach, the Torah tells us, Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahas, the son of Levi. So Levi is the tribe one of the 12 tribes, and his has a son Kahas. Kahas is also the forefather of Amr, the father of Amram. So Kahas is also the grandfather of Moshe. So Korach wasn't just a Levite, but he was from Moshe's family, from the sons of Kahas, who was the son of Yitzhar. Yitzhar was the brother of Amram. And so Korach would be Amram's nephew, Moshe's first cousin. Who joined him? Dasan and Aviram. We learned about Dasan and Aviram before. They were troublemakers all the way back in Egypt. And also, they were the children of Eliav. And Oim ben Pelas, who was also from the tribe of Reuven, he also, so there were many people, but the people of prominence that are mentioned are Korach, Dasam Aviron, and Oim ben Pelas. So the Gemara teaches like this: Vayikach Korach, Korach took. So the question is, what does it mean? Vayikach, he took. It should have said that they did. What's the taking? And Korach. So it says, Amrei Shlakish teaches us. Shlakach mikach ra latzma. He did a bad investment. Others say, like it says, the Noam Elimelech breaks out that he was vayafleg. The word vayikach means he separated. But here he's saying he did a bad investment. Mikach ra latzma. That's what the word vayikach means. Korach, what's the word Korach mean? So again, we're darshaning, we're studying the letters of the names to understand the story. So Korach, although that was his name, it says Korach, Shinasa Korcha b'Yisrael. He created a Korcha, a void, because of his story within the Jewish people. Ben Yitzhar, what does Yitzhar mean? The son of Yitzhar is Bein Shehirtiach Alav Es Kol Ha'olam Kitzarayim. He brought burning to the world like the burning sun in the afternoon. So this is again the son of Yitzhar means again we learn from the word Yitzhar that he brought the wrath of heat like the sun in the afternoon. Ben Kahas, what does it mean Kahas? Ben Shehika Shinov Meilidov. His forefathers, their teeth were grinding from his behavior. Ben Levi Shenasa Levaya Begehenim. Levi was named by his mother Leah as someone who accompanies God. But in this case, in the case of Korach, Levaya, he's the one who is accompanied in hell. So there's ways that a name could be positive or a name could be negative. So in this case, everything is to the negative, and that's how we could understand more the story of what Korach did. He says, the Marsha says when he means he did a bad investment, that means a rich person should really invest good, but he invested bad. Mekach ra hischil b'katata. He's the one who started this whole fight. Shasakarcha b'Yisrael shenivlu. They were swallowed up. He made a void. Shetiach shehichis. He brought the anger of God. Hikashinav moilidav shenisbaishu avoisav v'maisai rohim. His forefathers were shamed by his behavior. So now we have the famous question that's brought down. Why doesn't it mention Yaakov? It should have also mentioned he's the son of Yaakov. And what could we have learned from Yaakov? Levi, so it could have been Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahas, the son of Levi, the son of Yaakov. Levi is the son of Yaakov. So the Gemara asks, V'lichshev nami ben Yaakov, ben she'okov atzmei legehenim, a son who contorted she'ikav, he put himself into Gehenim, into hell. So Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, the Shmuel son of Yitzchak, said, Yaakov b'kashrachim alatzma. Yaakov said, don't mention me in this story. Like it says, B'soidim al tavi nafshi b'kaholam al techat kivoidi. Rashi, Yaakov, when he cursed or blessed Levi, he said, let my soul not come into their council and to their assembly, let my honor not be united. He didn't want to be part of their story. B'soidim al tavi nafshi elu meraglim. So he meant to say that he doesn't want to be mentioned with as a forefather to the spies. That's Adis Korach. Okay. In other places, it means to say that he doesn't want to be mentioned. He's talking to Shimon and Levi. He doesn't want to be mentioned in the rebellion of Korach, and doesn't want to be mentioned in the rebellion at the end of the 40 years by the tribe of Shimon when they rebelled with the daughters of Tzlavcha, the daughters of Midian. But here the Gemara learns that it's talking about the Meraglim, the spies, or Korach. Yaakov said, don't mention me in these stories. It's the reason why it would it seems it wouldn't really make sense for it to be the spies, because Levi wasn't one of the spies. but from the tribes of Levi didn't go. The tribes, the spies were sent from the other 12 tribes. If you divide Yosef into two, Ephraim and Menashe, Ephraim, of course, was Yeshua, the son of Yeshua ben Nun. Yaakov said, "Don't mention me in their story." Doesn't say that the spies were the descendants of Yaakov. So Yaakov said, "Don't mention me in the story of the spies." Okay, so so this is how we understand from Korach. Also, the idea of Korach Shenasa Korcha B'Yisrael, that the name Korach no longer is mentioned in the Jewish people. It says V'Shem Rishayim Yirkov, the name of the wicked should rot. So we don't find the name Korach mentioned by the Jewish people, although Esav does have a son called Korach. It's mentioned in the family of Esav, but in the Jewish people, B'Yisrael, the name Korach is not mentioned anymore. He brought the anger, Ben Yitzhar Shirtiach, he brought the wrath, the anger from Hashem when it came. We find later also that God the sun didn't want to rise until God forgave, fixed, rectified the honor of Moshe. So therefore it affected the sun. That's the idea of this, that it affected the heat. Okay. So it says like this. Again, Rashi in the Chumash says that when it says the Sedom al Tavi Nafshi, that it's talking about the story of Zimri, which is the story of Shimon, and that would make sense because he was talking to both Shimon and Levi in that conversation when he blesses them or curses them before his passing. Yaakov Avinu. Okay, now we're holding Dasam and Aviron. What is the names Dasan? She'avar al Das. The word Dasan in the word Dasan is the word Das. Das means so to say the laws. So Sha'avra al das kel, he went against the rule, violated the das, the precepts of Hashem. Aviram, what's the name? Aviram she'iber atzmei ma'asis tshuva. He prevented himself from repenting. Who's Oin? Oin ben Peles. Oin is shiashav ba'aninas, that he sat in aninas, is the person who's in mourning. Peles shenasalei plois. Wonders happened to Oin ben Peles. We'll see what that means. Ben Ruvain, Ben Shira. Ruvain is Ru'u, to see. If you turn around the name Reuven, it's Ru'u Bain. So Bain Shira Vehaven, someone who saw and understood. We're going to learn now that Oin ben Peles again. So who was the main people that rebelled against Moshe and Korach? There was Korach, and he grabbed some people from Levi, Dasam and Aviram from Ruvain, and Oin ben Peles. Korach, Dasan, Aviram, and that whole congregation were killed. On, we learn from On ben Peles. Oin, he sat in mourning, so to say, mourning, and he repented. Wonders happened that he was saved. Reuven, he saw and understood. He realized he made a mistake. Okay. Bein Shirave Vehaven. Not everyone agrees exactly that's the pshat, but pretty much that's the pshat. Meaning to say, when it says Oin, that he sat in Aninas, he sat in, so to say, mourning, others learn that say that he didn't sit in mourning because of repentance. He said he sat in mourning because he was saved by his wife. We're going to see in a second what happened. His wife saved him, so he was ashamed by that. But he still, the word Peles is from the word place. Wonders happened that he was saved, and he understood. So Rashi says, She'ibra levavi chazik levavi, he strengthened his heart. Aviri Lev, like it says in Yeshayahu, he strengthened his heart not to do tshuva. That's Dasan and Aviram. Shiyasher Baninas Sha'asar tshuva al shahayimam tchila be'etza. What did Oin ben Peles do? He repented for ever being part of this congregation. Nasalei ploi shapir shenitzam yem. It was wondrous how he was saved. Rav Haven she'im min hagan kishuro pirshmem. He realized what they're doing was wrong, and he did not. He left them. Okay, so basically, Oin ben Peles does tshuva. What's the story? Amar Rav teaches us. Oin ben Peles ishta hitzaltu. His wife saved him. The Rebbe has a whole talk about the difference between Korach's wife and Oin ben Peles' wife. The wife either saves him or the wife destroys him. Korach's wife was the instigator. She instigated, she pushed Korach to rebel. Oin ben Peles realized, what are you doing? She told her husband, what are you doing? She saved him. Amrle, Oin ben Peles said to, the wife of Oin ben Peles says to her husband Oin, "My nafka lachmina. Why are you rebelling? What benefit do you have from here? Imar Rabba, if Moshe is going to be the leader, an talmida, you're going to be the student. V'imara, but if Korach is going to be the leader, and Talmud, you're still going to be the student. Nothing, the facts on the ground don't change for you. So what's the benefit? What benefit do you have in this whole rebellion? You're getting worked up in a fight that has no benefit to you. Amr lei, so he said to her, Ma Avid, what should I do? Have be'etzah. I was there initially in this whole, so to say, initial uprising. V'ishtaba, and in this rebellion in the beginning, we all took vows. Bahadayu, that we're gonna stick with it. We're not gonna back out. Amr lei yadana dekula kenishta kadishtaninu. This is where it says kolam kulam kadeshim. She says they're holy people. I'm going to save you. Their holiness is going to save you. The people were holy. Amrulay, she said to him, Tuv. She said, sit. I'm going to save you. Ishkasi chamra. She gave him wine, and he fell asleep. I mean, she like this when he's drunk. So a drunk person can't be obligated to keep his vow. Varvise, va'agnise gavoy, and so she became drunk and laid him down inside the tent. She sat at the entrance. Avaba, she sat at the entrance. Okay, let's just see Rashi. It's a mid-story again. Reb Steinsaltz is just finishing off the Rashis. If Moshe's, she tells, Oim Ben Pel's wife says, if Moshe is victorious, you're still a student. And if Korach is in a win in his rebellion, he's still a student. What do you get out of it? Out of this shrara of Korach, you're not going to change. It says, Havai be'etz, hayisi imam be'etz. I was there when they decided to rebel. V'nishpati, we all made a vow. Sh'im yikrani eilech imam. That if they call me, I have to go. So if they're going to call me to be part of the 250 or part of the rebellion, I have to go. So he says, the kula kanishta kadisha. She says, the people are holy. Kulam tzenuyim, they're all pious. V'kadashim le'ikansu ilai imani perua. She says, if I uncover myself, if she makes herself, she sits in an immodest way, which we're going to see that she uncovered her hair. That's what it means, that she didn't keep modesty. She uncovered her hair, and for a married woman, a Jewish married woman, to uncover her hair is not modest. So the people came to the tent. It says, Visati lemazia, and she exposed her hair. Called the Asa Chazai, whenever they saw a married woman sitting outside the tent with her hair down, Hadar dahachi v'hachi iblulahu. They all stepped back. And in the meantime, Korach was swallowed up and he was saved. So no one dared to go into the tent to schlep him out because they had to pass his wife. And his wife we learned that story also by Yael, right? That she also, I think, she sat there with her hair out. She hoped, she put down her hair, and she stood outside the tent. Whenever they came to get Oim Ben Pelas and said, it's time to join the rebellion, they saw her sitting with her hair uncovered, and they backed off because they were modest. So she used their modesty to save her husband. So that's the wife of Oim Ben Pelas. So she says to him, what are you doing? She gets him out of this bundle. She saves him by protecting, and she did desperate measures, calls for desperate situation, calls for desperate measures. But Korach's wife was the total opposite. Itze de Korach Amrle, the wife of Korach tells Korach, Chazi my Kavid Moshe, look what Moshe did to you. Iyu Hava Malka, he made himself king. La'achuya, for his brother, meaning Aaron. Shavi Kahan Rabbi made him the high priest. Livnei Achuya, to the sons of his brother, meaning the sons of Aaron. Shavenhu Skani Takani, they made them second to the priest, meaning the young priest. I Asit Truma, if there's going to be tithings. Amr to heavy the coin, it goes to the priest, doesn't go to the Levite. He also Meiser, and even the tithings that goes to the Meiser, that goes to the Levite, the Shaklisul Atun. So Amar Havuchad Masar coin. Even though you get Meiser, you have to give Trumas Meiser. 1/10 has to go to the Kohen. So look how he protects his own family. He gives his own family positions. V'oid, and another thing she said to him, the Gazile Lemaziachu. He says he made you shave. We know that the law was in the desert, the Levites totally shaved. So he said he shamed you by making you shave your hair and waves you like an excrement. It means he treats you like a fool. He sets sight on your hair. Amrlei ha iu nami kavid. He said he also shaved. So from here we see that Moshe didn't have a beard, or here Moshe was totally shaved bald like the rest of the Kohanim, the Levites. Amrlei kiven the kula revusi didei Amr iu nami tamas nafshim plishtim. She quotes the verse of tamas nafshim plishtim that she said, okay, you guys, he's making a fool of you. He said, so in order for you guys to fall for it, he also shaved, but he doesn't care because he has all the benefits. He's king, his brother's high priest. So he says, Tamas Nafshim Plishtim is an expression. I'll go down with the Philistines. That means I'll go down with the Levites, but the bottom line is I'm going to gain because I'm going to be king and they're going to be nothing. So she basically played at his ego. She said, you're nothing. He takes all the positions. He makes you look like a fool. It says somewhere, he says, he made you look like a cucumber, right? The cucumber has nothing. It's like a bald person. So it says over here, let's continue and then we'll just finish off the class over here. If you take Meiser, the tithings that goes to the Levites, but 1/10 of that tithing has to go to the Kohen. The guys in Maizaichu, the reason he makes you shave all the hair off your body is to make you guys look stupid. Kekufta rei k'may betula de kufta de amr liel kegalgal azatem chayshim beinav. You're like a excrement. He throws you around, makes you look. He eyed you, he made you look, so you shouldn't look like him. So he said, Korach says, but Moshe did shave himself. He says, given the kula rebusa today because he gets all the benefits. And he doesn't care to shave himself. The Gamal Nafshe says to himself, Thomas Nafshim Plishtim. I'll go down with the Philistines, meaning I'll look like the Levites. Ego is Sa'ari Kamaisim, I'll shave my hair like them. Umali Bekach, Shem Kaiman Afilu Mashani Mitzavel Ischek, Ego is Achshav Kamaisim Tela Hafis Taitam. I will shave, tell them to shave, they're going to look like fools. At the end of the day, I'm going to be king and they're going to be nothing. She worked on his insecurities and she worked on his ego, and Korach rebelled. Some explain since his prominence and reign are recognized by all, shaving will not lead others to disparage him. The rest of the Levites whose standing is not as prominent will be disparaged. The Marsha says because Moshe was Moshe, so shaved or not shaved, he still has a position of prominence. Whereas the Levites would be looked at as fools. Let's just continue here. Just do one more piece because I have to go daven. So then she went to the halacha. This is already the dispute exactly how we understand this. But we know that the parsha of Korach follows the parsha of tzitzis. Biblically, a person who wears tzitzis has to also wear the blue string, which is known as tchelis. The tchelis is only one of the 8 strings of each of the tzitzah. So the Rashi learns the medrash that says that Korach, after learning the laws of tzitzis, said, if the whole beged is tchelis, so why do you need tzitzis? If there's one tzitzis, if one blue string elevates the tzitzis to be kosher, so if the whole beged, if the whole garment is blue, for sure it'd be good. And the same question it talks about mezuzah. He said, if a mezuzah makes a whole house livable, if you have a house full of books, of svarim, of Sefer Torah, which has more than the mezuzah only has one portion of the Torah in the box, right? So also you shouldn't need a mezuzah. But here the Gemara learns it a little different than the Medrash. She says to him, she says to prepare blue dye for the tzitzis. If it's so important to have blue and it's considered a mitzvah, take out robes that are made entirely of material colored in sky blue dye, and dress all of the academy, means the base medrash. And so why do you have to only have one string? And this is, the Gemara says, this is what we learn, that the verse says that chachmas nashim bansa beisa, when a woman is smart, zu ishle shel Ayin ben Peles, this is the wife of Ayin ben Peles, that's smart and saves her husband. She also told him, she took care of him, she uncovered her hair, she made herself look immodest, and at least to save her husband. Vivelas biyadem tarsenu, but folly plucks it down with her hands, or the woman could be the reason of our husband's downfall, which is the Ishle Shel Korach. This is the wife of Korach. All right, so we're just going to finish the Rashis here, and then we are going to conclude the class. Rashi says over here, you should put tchelis on the four corners. If the color blue was so important, you should have made the entire garment out of blue. It says, he says everyone should just dress in blue, cover the whole base medrash with blue. Why are you just putting on blue on one side? So here he quotes, Reb Steinsaltz quotes what I mentioned before. In the Medrash, a more detailed version of the incident is related. After Moses taught the mitzvah to have sky blue wool in the ritual fringes, which is the tzitzis, Korach claimed that a garment woven entirely of sky blue wool does not require sky blue ritual fringes. You don't have to have the tzitzis hanging from the garment, right? What is tzitzis? There's a garment, and we have the strings hanging from the garment. Korach said, Rashi quotes, you don't need the strings if the whole beged, if the whole garment is made out of blue. Similarly, after Moses taught the mitzvah of placing mezuzah on the doorpost, Korach claimed that the house filled with Torah scrolls does not require mezuzah on its doorpost. The connection between ritual fringes and the assembly of Korach is based on the juxtaposition, meaning to say that the laws of tzitzis are before the story of Korach, of the portion concerning ritual fringes at the end of Numbers chapter 15, and the portion of the assembly of Korach starts from chapter 16. Okay, we're going to continue the story of Korach next week. We learn fascinating things. For instance, Korach is he accused Moshe of being a womanizer. They accused Moshe of other things. This wasn't an easy story for Moshe, and this wasn't an easy story for the Jewish people. And we'll continue to learn this Be'ezus Hashem next week. Again, thank you all for joining. I know it's a small crowd because of the summer. Be'ezus Hashem next week, hopefully everyone will be back. Laila Tov, take care.